Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with Simcoe Training. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Again, here's another one you might want to use in your sales meetings with car salespeople or service parts people, something like that. Quick, short one again for you. And I'm going to tell you, I've been bombarded with this. This one goes out for a thank you to Andrew, who actually phoned me and said, do you remember this story? So the story goes that a couple go to see the dean of Harvard University from out of town. Now, these people spoke very common. They dressed really common. They didn't have an appointment. They spoke to the reception and said, we haven't got an appointment, but could we see the dean of Harvard University? The legend has it she looked down over glasses and said, he's terribly busy. What's it regarding? Well, it's a personal matter. We're from out of town. We know he's busy, but if he could spend 5 minutes for us, we'd really appreciate it. She goes in to see the dean. He said, what's it regarding? They won't tell me. So I haven't got time. Get rid of them. All day she's trying to get rid of them, but they won't leave. Exasperated, she goes into the dean about, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. Says, would you just come and spend 5 minutes with these people? I can't get rid of them. He said, yeah, sure. Great, I'll bring him in. No, they might get comfortable. I'll speak to them out there. The dean goes to speak to these people in the reception area or the room of Harvard University. And they said, thank you so much for seeing us. We know you're really busy. But the reason we want to see you is our son come to Harvard University and it was the happiest days of his life. And unfortunately, last year he passed away. And what we want to do is erect some sort of memorial for him in the grounds of Harvard University. Now, the dean looked at these people and said, I can sympathize. You've lost your son. That's terrible, but we can't put up a statue for every dead student that's come here. The place will look like a cemetery. To which point the dean said, no. Sorry, the husband said, no, we didn't want to donate a statue. We want to donate a building. A building. Do you have any comprehension what you're really saying? I mean, we have $16 million tied up here in building assets alone here in the grounds of Harvard University. With that, the husband turned to the wife and said, well, dear, if that's all it starts for university, why don't we start our own? And with that, Mr. and Mrs. Leland Stanford went home and started Stanford University in honor of Leland Stanford Jr. and a dean that prejudged him. Again, another great story and probably not that true. If you look at the internet, you know what, guys, here's a lesson. There's great stories out there. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, but don't tell porky pies to your customers. There's this thing called Google out there now. And I've got to tell you, I believed that story for a long time. I heard it at the National Automotive Dealers Association. I thought, great story. I'm going to tell plenty of people about that until you go and Google it. But actually, the real story, I think, is just as good. You see, Mr. and Mrs. Leland Stanford did go home and start Stanford University of honor of Leland Stanford Jr. Their son, who actually died at 15, not an accident. He never went to Harvard University. He was traveling in, I believe this was Italy, okay? And that was an only child. Leland Stanford was a railway magnate, so he had lots of money. And apparently he said to his wife, well, we've lost our only child. All the children of California can be our children now. And he donated something like the equivalent of $5 million. In today's money, I think it's like $150 million. And they started Stanford University. Still in honor of Leland Stanford Jr. But the poor Harvard dean who got criticized for prejudging these poor people, you're off the hook. But listen, guys, you're not off the hook for prejudging your customers. If you're relatively new to the motor trade, Speak to your colleagues in that meeting right now, and they'll tell you story after story of someone turns up that looks like they didn't have any money and they've got carrier bags full of cash. I remember one in London. This guy turned up to a Peugeot dealership and he wanted to buy a car for his assistants and put it on a black Amex card. And he was some music producer that had so much money there, okay? And he was ignored by so many people. But prejudging is not just assuming these people can't buy the car. If you ever deal with the high end, we work with a Porsche dealership, and you know what? You can't tell, okay, who the people are. But not just prejudging that way. I think we prejudge in the service department if people are going to put their tires on that car with 3 millimeters to go until they're illegal and they spent so much else on it. I think we prejudge in the sales department thinking, you know what, they didn't look after that last car. They're not going to want Life Shine or SuperGuard or the paint and fabric protection this time. We prejudge them. We prejudge that, hold on, Bob's always paid cash for his car because he just turns up with a check, okay? And we prejudge thinking he's not going to be interested in that personal contract, purchase or plan or PCH. So we prejudge on so many different points, okay? Again, Leland Stanford, Stanford University, great story. It might help you remember, don't be prejudging your customers. Quick short one again for you this time. I'll see you again. That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, simcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn.